Here I call in the big blind with King Jack offsuit. We are 250 big blinds deep. Um, I float the flop out of position. I think this is obviously a little bit loose, but nothing wrong with it. And I decided to check raise. Excuse me. I decided to check raise this turn. He's been betting twice, very very frequently. At this point in the match, definitely can't check call with my king high and jack high flush draw. So I check raise. I rivered the fifth nuts actually, with the straight flush. Well, six nuts, seventh nuts. I guess 7-8 of clubs, then 7-4 of clubs, or sorry, 7-3 of clubs, then just a 3 of clubs. But it's not all that relevant, I guess. I decided to value bet. He ends up looking me up with a bigger flush, so I lose a pretty big pot here. It's funny that I actually had the best hand on the turn, but I'm in a pretty bad spot against his hand because he has the better draw, and it's pretty tough for me to win. I mean, on a brick river, I guess I'm betting, and he'll probably fold, but it's possible that I just check fold there. He will be bluffing, any time I check to him. So pretty bad situation there for me on the turn against his actual hand, even though I had the best hand. And here I call 3-bet, call the flop. Oh yeah, he was 2-barreling a lot, and this was one spot where I semi-bluff shoved the turn, and it worked out well for me. I kind of made it a strategy of mine in both games to have a larger or wider turn raising range than I do against most opponents. And here, nothing interesting. Call 3-bet, call the flop, get very lucky on the river, and he shoves, which he'll be doing with his whole range, and I was lucky to have the 7 there. This is an interesting one. I check raise the flop, end up spiking my king on the turn, bet for value, and on the river, the 3 straight hits, and it doesn't really affect his range that much. It's pretty unlikely he has a straight here, but it's also unlikely that I'll get a ton of action on this river. I think that the 5 makes it pretty tough for me to have air, with the exception of hands like 10-9, 10-8, and then my random bluffs like this that didn't catch. But I decided to play this weird and check to induce, and I was going to consider shoving for value, but I felt he was actually kind of polarized here with his bet size. Ended up being wrong because he was value betting thin, semi-thinly with ace-queen, and I scooped a nice pot. But just goes to show you, just because you likely have the best hand, doesn't mean that you need to value bet it. Especially out of position, you have other options. Here, the dynamic was so aggressive that I was happy to get in 6s here. Not so happy when I ran into 7s and lost a big pot. This was a hand, and I'm sorry I'm not going into too much strategy, but it's not a strategy video. I decided to just call his 3-bet. We are a little deep, and I actually, given the match, would be comfortable getting this in, but I decided not to. Decided to kind of slow play it. Like when I say I'd be comfortable getting it in, I'd be comfortable 4-betting and getting it in, but I wouldn't be like super happy about it. Anyways, I call the flop, and on this turn I decide to go for value. It's definitely possible he has aces or kings and wanted to kind of pot control, but I think more likely than that he has a 5 or a 4 or ace high or something that can find a call, since I was floating a lot of flops. 7 is actually a river that I would bluff a lot if I was floating, so I do have to balance with some value bets, and so I do think I can get looked up light here. He ended up calling with 5-4, so he did look me up pretty light. He was ahead on the flop though. Ace queen, I 4-bet. I'm happy to get it in. He just calls my 4-bet, and I flop top pair, bet, obviously planning to go with it. I turn queen. This is another spot where I decide to use kind of his aggression against him, and figure that this is a spot where if he had like a lower pair or like a weak draw that he floated with, he'd very likely shove most rivers when I check behind turn. He ended up showing with his 6-7, so that worked out nicely. Here, I don't remember this hand. I see that mid pair with a gutter. Pretty standard call on the flop. Not not a whole lot to say about it. On the turn, it gets tricky. He bets again. I think he's just got a wide enough range, especially considering the one card got shots on board. Like King 7, King 8 here, any 7, any 8. He would take this line with at least some portion of the time. So because of that, and my equity to improve against a better made hand, I decide to call, and actually decide to call again. And I was pretty confident about my call. I ended up being wrong though this particular time. And this is just me running well. Check call twice with mid pair, and river trips, and he decides to jam. I don't think I mean, in a lot of spots I do like his overbet jams, but this is a spot where, because it's so easy for me to have it, obviously results oriented, I did have it this time, but I think it's a spot where I have it too often for that jam to be, for the jam to be his go-to bet size there with a lot of his range. And for the last hand, I call 3-bet. I float the flop. I figure he would give me a lot of credit on a board this dry if I want to take it away later. However, I turn my pair, and he continues betting, and I decide to call the turn, evaluate the river. He shoves, and I end up making a call. Enough things missed, enough draws on board that I felt he would continue barreling. And I thought there'd be some total air. And just given how much he was 3-betting, he definitely does not need to have a strong hand here. He did actually have a legit draw that missed. Ended up winning. And I guess I'll post some of the hand histories in my blog as well for people that don't want to watch the video. But let me know what you guys think of this format as opposed to, kind of the standard hand history blogging. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Phil Galfon for bluefirepoker.com. Take care.